Hey everyone, I'm Ivan from Aragon. Justice, as always, helped shield us and gave a good definition of what a DAO is. So, with that in mind, let's get a bit into what has happened over the past 9 years. Vitalik in 2014 published the first paper on DAOs and DACs. About a year later, actually before the Ethereum network went live, a few people on a forum started talking about creating a decentralized stablecoin that's governed by a digitally native community, a DAO. That's Maker, the first DAO that came into existence, and it's actually still around. That was going really well, and like a bunch of people got very excited about DAOs. So about around 2016, a massive part, I believe something like 10% of the Ethereum in circulation at the time, got pulled together into the first investment DAO, also called the DAO, and that got famously hacked and resulted in the fork of Ethereum between the Ethereum we know today and that other thing called Ethereum Classic. So nobody wanted to touch the DAOs with a 10-foot pole after that thing happened, except those two guys who were the founders of Aragon were like, that's kind of cool, let's do it. Like nobody else wants to do this. So we started building, we built the first on-chain governance framework in 2017. Since then, a lot of interesting innovation has happened. 2019, Moloch introduced a now increasingly popular functionality called Rage Quit, which is similar to like a minority protection. So if you're not in agreement with what the majority has voted on and the way the project can move forward, you can just like pull out your stake. 2020 Compound introduced their like incentive program and pushed the decentralization and DeFi. We've seen an explosion of DAOs since then. Actually, Constitution DAO making the headlines was the absolute top of the market. But we made headlines. A lot of organizations started doing off-chain governance because Ethereum fees exploded. We also saw the emergence of DAOs, which is a radically new experiment in the space. And we don't know what's next. I don't think anyone in 2014, 2015 knew that like that's the route things are going to take. So let's look at why are people building DAOs. We have the product and protocol segment, which is we're building like an on-chain native product, and the community around this is governing how that product or protocol grows. We have capital collectives, which are investment DAOs, and charitable organizations. Those work reasonably well. We have work collectives where groups of service providers, in essence, in the industry, work together as a co-op. Also, like pretty decent traction. Clubs and cults, something that Justice also mentioned, where people just gather around an idea, a person, a joint passion. So, on the surface level, that's why people are building DAOs. But if we look underneath, there are the actual reasons people are building DAOs. And so here we have the idealistic thing of origination. So it's like, we've gathered here today and we'll build this awesome thing together. So like, let's create a more equitable way of decision making from day one. That rarely happens. We had a lot of crowdfunding stuff back in 2017, 2018, the ICO boom, which was basically, here's a team, give us a bunch of money, we'll give you a token, and then you govern whatever we build, if and when. And then a lot of that money that was raised, then projects ended up spending on user acquisition. It was like, they gave a PayPal moment. The PayPal moment in the early 2000s was PayPal would give you $10 to use their product. And then in 2019, Uniswap gave you $1,200 if you've used their product before. And since then, we saw an explosion of airdrops as a distribution model, and the hint of a potential airdrop as a way for projects to bootstrap usage and refine their product and push users through the initial pain of oh my god, I have to create this on-chain wallet thing and the 12 words, and then I have to go to trade on these decks and exchange fees are high, etc., etc. And then we have resilience, which is one of the more idealist reasons people would create DAOs. We talk a lot about it. Very few organizations actually need this, right? One of the definitions of DAOs that we had before was unstoppable organizations, and that's the resilience bit. But in reality, few organizations are at a state where you do actually need this. So most of the reason is in the first 3 buckets. So with that as background, let's see what have we seen to work. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Huge shout out to Justine from Optimism. She compiled an amazing resource, the DAO library, and you can read a lot about the details of how organizations succeeded in the space there. But let me give you a brief summary. So what we would refer to as most successful DAOs that are somehow functioning in the space, they share a few characteristics. They are either permissioned, or they rely on a one token, one vote, plus some sort of a delegation. They importantly have a very empowered core team. So although we have this idea of decentralization, what we see is that organizations that persist do rely on a core group of contributors that pushes the envelope forward day in and day out. Let's get into it. How do we do this? Token distribution is the most important decision that you will make as a DAO. There's a lot of criticism of one token, one vote. A lot of that can be solved by being more thoughtful about how you distribute tokens. So here are a few questions to help you think through this problem. First one is why DAO? So in that matrix that I showed before, there are 4 reasons, and the reason why you're building a DAO might change over time, but at the time when you're making this decision of how you distribute tokens, there is one primary reason for doing it. And you have to be honest with you, is it do I want to attract financial capital? Do I want to attract users? Do I want to attract? You have to figure out what's your objective at that point in time. Based on that, you have to define who is us. Who are the stakeholders that should have shared ownership into whatever you're building, and who should have the ability to direct that project forward. That also might evolve over time, which brings us to the third question, which is when token. The most important question in the industry. And one of the important elements here is, so Bitcoin took about 14 years to distribute 90% of the supply. A lot of DAOs, they distribute 90% of the supply in the first 6 months. And if you're building something that should last decades, maybe centuries, you cannot just give away all the value early on. So think about this and start slowly. Speaking of starting slowly, governance, which is what we spend a lot of our time on, is a hot topic. The advice here is start simple, evolve. We have to rebuild our entire product around the idea of organizations change with time, so should their governance. Maybe start just with a multi-sig. I know, radical. DAOs were branded mission-driven organizations, and what we saw is that mission, vision, values is not cutting it. You need to have a strategy, and you need to help that collective make certain trade-offs in the future. So don't give a recipe, give a framework. So how should we think about problems? You don't want to give the answer, because that answer might change over time. You need the buy-in of that core team. And when it comes to accountability, because the space is very transparent, you have to make sure that you don't burn out your team. A lot of us did this as a kid, where you take a lens and you burn them out. I call it very on theme. Okay, I have like 30 seconds left, so rapid fire. When it comes to legal, speak to a lawyer, maybe more than one. When you're thinking about like what should be on-chain, what should be off-chain, you don't have to like reinvent your entire stack. Figure out which elements do you want to put on-chain. That comes with security guarantees. It has cost, not only transactions, but also cognitive of like, how do I frame rules in a way that I can put them in code? A lot of stuff would remain on the social layer as a social consensus. Community, the token is an amplifier. It's on a seeder. You need to build a community, which is a set of diverse stakeholders, and community is just a collective word. But those are different groups. They have different interests. You have to think about who they are and start fostering that before you build your actual DAO. And with the treasury, similar to governance, you will always be wrong. Like you'll either have too much of your own token or not enough of your own token. Like some mix of ETH, stable, or whatever the base token of the network you're running on is, stable coins and your native token is like a good first bet, and then adjust from there depending on what your objective is. Thank you.